Good morning and good afternoon to some of our friends online. As you notice, we're in a different space today. This is called the Sangha House. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can make our practice our whole life. How it can really be sort of the backbone of our whole life. And it doesn't mean that things have to look terribly different. We don't have to ordain or do any really particular thing. It's really a frame of mind, a kind of a not forgetting and being just very appreciative of ordinary life and each moment of our life. But because it's not something that's particularly valued in our culture, it takes sort of great determination. We have to have some sort of determination that I want to do this. I want to make practice my life. Still do all the other things that I do in my life, but have kind of running all the way through it our practice, which is a practice of ordinary awareness and great compassion. All the time, awareness and compassion. So continuing, having read a little bit from Norman Fisher's Training in Compassion the last few weeks, I'd like to read a little more. What he says here about great determination in his this is his commentary on Lojong practice. So one part of the slogans in Lojong practice is cultivating a serious attitude, and part of that is strong determination. Probably our biggest challenge in spiritual practice is not that we don't have the time or the talent or the focus or the right atmosphere or setting. Probably the biggest challenge is simply that we don't take ourselves seriously enough. Though we may believe that spiritual practice is a good idea and self-transformation a possibility, when it comes down to it, we don't really think it's possible for us. Or maybe we actually don't want to transform. Of course, we actually do want to transform, especially if our lives are noticeably unsatisfactory, but at the same time we don't. Our motivations are mixed. So we can't truly be serious about our practice. Now, I'm very grateful that early in my practice, for some reason, you hear a sentence and it just penetrates. I heard a teacher, John Tarrant, who's actually from Australia originally, from Tasmania, but lives in California. I heard him say, "You can wake up in this life. You can do it in this life." And it really captured me when he said that. I thought, oh yes, all right, I can. All right, I will. So this is the kind of spirit of great determination and faith in ourselves. I can do this. I can live a life where I'm not constantly feeling kind of restless and determined by causes and conditions around me, my state of mind being tossed around by whether things are going well or whether things are going badly, what people think of me. I can be freed from that. It's possible in this life. And when he said this, it was in relation to koan training, which is, my original background. And it really gave me this strong focus. I'm going to work with my koans. I'm going to penetrate and see what it is that they're saying. What are they pointing at? I can do it. So this is the kind of spirit, taking ourselves seriously. That we can do this practice. It's not just in stories, and it's not just some people over there who somehow mysteriously are capable of it. It's really all of us. So just continuing here. Strong determination is exactly what it sounds like. It is a practice to teach us to take ourselves seriously as dignified spiritual practitioners. To feel as if whatever our shortcomings, and it is absolutely necessary that we are honest, even brutally honest, about our shortcomings at every point, we also have within us a powerful energy to accomplish the spiritual path. And that we do want to do this. It is, of all things, the most important thing for us. When you stop to think about it, what are you after in your life anyway? Or what are we after in our lives anyway? What is it that you most would like to accomplish or manifest with this one short, precious life that you have been given? Of course, you want to love and take care of your family and accomplish something in this world. You want to be someone, have some kind of identity in this world. We all need this and all it entails in whatever way is possible for us to establish it. But why? Because we want to be good people. We want to fulfill our highest human destiny. At our best, we all have high purposes, noble goals, even if we are modest about them, but we sometimes forget them. The daily grind takes us far from our reasons for doing what we do. We get lost in the details, absorbed in the problems. To practice strong determination is to intentionally stay connected to our highest goals and to remind us that we truly are spiritual practitioners. We are heroes. We can make an effort. We can do what needs to be done to live a noble life. Where he says here, probably the biggest challenge is simply that we don't take ourselves seriously enough. I think sometimes it could be tempting to think, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. When my career is established, when my children are older, or maybe even when I retire. Traditionally, that's quite common for people to wait in the East until they retire. Which is, I think, a lot better than when I retire, I'm going to go on a cruise around the world, which is also okay, but when I retire, I'm going to devote myself to practice is good, that's good. But we can just do it right now. We can do it right now. I am really grateful that I bumped into the Dharma in my 30s. I'm really glad that I did, because now I'm in my 60s. And I've had all of this time. And I'm glad it didn't have to wait till my 60s. I'm glad it started in my 30s. And here where he says, taking ourselves seriously as dignified spiritual practitioners. Our practice is dignified. We sit here in this posture. We listen to the birds. We follow to our breath. We pay attention when somebody speaks to us. We notice people's body language and see something that's behind the words. Often people want to communicate something, but they don't know how to communicate it in words. And if we have practiced this dignified posture, we'll see that little fleeting shadows. Sometimes a shadow comes over people's eyes, and you realize something's happening for them. And we can only really pick up things like that if we've spent time being still. And being still is a kind of dignity, especially in this fast-moving world. To be still is a form of dignity. And he talks here too about this one short, precious life that we have been given. Mysteriously, we have this life. It's just an extraordinary thing. And what are we doing with it? And I don't think this means that we can't relax and just enjoy our life, but it is also good just to notice each day, how am I doing today? How do I feel about my actions today, and my words today, and my thoughts today? Gently, but with a kind of sobering firmness at the same time. And to practice strong determination is to intentionally stay connected to our highest goals. So that's just this sort of reminding ourselves. One of the ways that we remind ourselves is we wear either robes or we wear our rakusu if we have them, like what Mark has. We put on our rakusu. It reminds us of our highest goals, to uphold the precepts. So there's a well-known koan in our tradition. It's sort of, if you haven't heard it before, it might feel a little bit intense, but we'll unpack it. So don't worry if it feels a little bit intense at first. This is case 41 in the Mumonkan, the gateless barrier. Bodhidharma pacifies the mind. Bodhidharma faced the wall. The second ancestor stood in the snow, cut off his arm and said, "Your disciple's mind has no peace as yet. I beg you, Master, please put it to rest." Bodhidharma said, "Bring me your mind and I will put it to rest." The second ancestor said, "I have searched for my mind, but I cannot find it." And Bodhidharma said, "I have completely put it to rest for you." So I chose this koan because I'd like to talk about this first part, about the second ancestor stood in the snow and cut off his arm. And there's some background to that. The second ancestor, his name is Shen Kuang, or more often he's referred to as Huiko. So Huiko, who became the second ancestor after Bodhidharma, and Bodhidharma was the monk who came from India to China. Was a 40-year-old monk whose childhood and youth, it seems, were not very different from those of monks in later times, reading and roaming about in nature, then ordination, followed by rigorous study of Buddhist texts and years of hard practice. Finally, in the midst of his studies, he was visited by a spirit who advised him that his practice was ripe. He was ready to move on. Knowing about Bodhidharma, he felt encouraged to seek him out. The story of their encounter is almost certainly inaccurate historically, but it is a myth that empowers our practice like few others. So here's the koan in a more extended form. It was winter. Day and night, Hueko stood before Bodhidharma's cave, beseeching him for instruction. The old barbarian, however, sat in zazen and paid no attention. One night there was a snowstorm, but Hueko stood there unmoving, and the snow reached his knees. Finally, Bodhidharma said, "You've been standing there a long time in the snow. What is it that you want?" Hueko said, "I beseech you, Master, open the gate of the Dharma and save all of us beings." Bodhidharma said, "The incomparable truth of the Buddhas can only be attained by constant striving, practicing what cannot be practiced, bearing the unbearable. How can you, with your small virtue and wisdom, and your easygoing and conceited mind, dare to aspire to the true teachings?" With this, it is said that he drew a knife, cut off his hand, and presented it to Bodhidharma, who relented at last and accepted him as a disciple, giving him the name by which he is known today, Hueko, light of wisdom. And then here's some commentary by Robert Aitken I'd just like to read. Seshu, the great Zen artist, painted a glorious picture of Hueko confronting his master. It is a black and white painting, but there is a delicate line of red around the severed wrist. Bodhidharma is sitting facing the wall, looking out of the corner of his eyes at his new disciple. The scene is very peaceful. Hueko presenting the hand folded in a napkin as an offering. At times of extreme crisis, Asian people have traditionally cut off fingers or even hands to demonstrate sincerity. The nun who presides at the Kuan Yin temple in Honolulu is missing part of one finger. She tells the story that her parents in Hong Kong would not allow her to become a nun, so she severed the end of her ring finger as a way of indicating that she had no intention of marrying. Thus they were persuaded. The anguish of Hueko facing Bodhidharma and this determined young woman facing her parents in Hong Kong, this is the anguish of the heroes and heroines of fairy tales and folk tales who must strive constantly, practicing that which cannot be practiced, bearing the unbearable. So I really appreciate this story and this image of Hueko standing in the snow, hour after hour, the snow falling on him, the snow rising up from his feet, up his ankles, all the way up to his knees, and he's still standing there. In some stories, he's standing there for 2 days, day and night, all through the day, all through the night, all through the day, all through the night. And Bodhidharma's just ignoring him. Well, he's not actually ignoring him, but he looks like he's ignoring him. He's just facing the wall. And Hueko is pleading, "Please take me as your disciple." And Bodhidharma could sound kind of mean, but actually it's that mean kind of kindness where he goes, "Why would I take you as a disciple? You're conceited, you're kind of lazy, you're not even trying." And here he is, he's been spending 2 days standing in the snow. And so he cuts off his hand and then hands it over wrapped in a napkin. And then Bodhidharma goes, "Oh, okay. Oh, all right." And of course, this is a mythical story. But it doesn't matter that we don't need to worry about it being mythical. We're mythical. Everything is mythical. The point of the story is this immense sincerity and determination that Hueko was demonstrating. And we can be inspired by that. And we don't have to cut anything off. We don't have to do that. But we We don't have to cut anything off our body, but we can cut off our delusions. We can cut as we watch ourselves. We notice that we're having a corrosive thought that's not helpful to anybody, not helpful to us, not helpful to anyone else. We can go, cut. This is not a good use of my time. We can be firm with ourselves that way. And we can be gentle with ourselves. We can be firm, we can be gentle. We can be, in one instant, we can notice that we're very tired and very stressed, and so it would be a good idea to do something very sort of nourishing for ourselves. Maybe what might look like something indulgent, it could be, like, I don't know, whatever is indulgent for people. And sometimes that's just the right thing to do. To maybe eat too much, or, I don't know, whatever it is that people might do. Go to a movie, or whatever the things are that people might do. Sometimes that's just the right thing to do. And other times it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Don't need to do that. It's okay, don't do that. And only we can be the one to figure this out. Nobody else can figure it out for us. We have to do it ourselves. And we should really respect ourselves. So if we make one choice, we go, okay, that's the choice I made. We don't have to second guess ourselves. Just observe the outcome of the choices that we make. What was the effect of those choices that I made? Was that the right thing for me to do? To maybe say, not turn up to Zazen one morning. That would be a good example. You're really tired, you've had a really long day, you feel like you've got a cold coming on. Maybe the best thing is to sleep in and not go to Zazen. And then on another day, you could be really tired and a cold is coming on, and you can go, that's okay, I can still make it to Zazen. And then we just observe what was the effect of being gentle with myself, and then on another day being firm with myself. You can just observe the outcome of that. That's how we develop this great determination and have great respect for ourselves as spiritual practitioners. And so there's a few other ways, let's check the time, a few other ways that we can develop this sort of strong determination. And one of them is to be comfortable with repetition. We have a lot of repetition in our practice. We bow, we sit in the same posture, we chant the same sutras, we offer incense in the same way. We have a lot of repetition. So part of also developing, making our whole life practice, making practice our whole life, is to every time we do something that's a repetition, to really do it fully and not think of it as just a boring repetition. Really give it our whole attention, wholeheartedly bow, wholeheartedly follow the breath. Really enjoy repetition and being familiar, sort of the familiarity of our practice and of our sutras and our various teachings, and to get familiar with them and not get sick of hearing them over and over and over. We keep hearing the same things over and over and over. Everything's interconnected. There is no self. We hear these teachings over and over. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe. Just follow the breath. You can just hear it over and over and over. And that way, when every time we hear it, we're making practice our whole life. We're not going, oh, this bit's not necessary to pay attention to. I'll forget about this bit. And every single thing in our life, we can pay attention to it. And when we pay attention, just regular paying attention, we don't have to go overly effortfully. We just give our attention with our ears and with our eyes and with our body. That's making practice our whole life. And we can go to bed feeling really satisfied and relaxed and at peace. And we can also cultivate our ethical practice. We can really notice all through the day, are the thoughts that I'm having in accord with the precepts? Am I thinking a mean-spirited thought about somebody or about myself? We can keep observing that, just noticing when we've gone off and maybe are thinking something that's not very helpful to anybody, or is harmful actually to somebody or to ourselves. We can just notice it and catch ourselves. And sometimes we don't know what the alternative thought might be, but we can at least label, you could say, we could at least label, this thought I'm having is not very helpful. Like feeling guilty or feeling embarrassed. Those sorts of thoughts, they're really not very helpful. They're helpful maybe just for a minute or two, and then they're not helpful. So just noticing that, or we're feeling very judgmental of somebody else. And just notice that we're doing it. So all through the day we have so many opportunities just to notice what our mind is doing and to look at our thoughts through the lens of the precepts, through the lens of a sort of a broader kind of ethical framework of not wanting to do harm even with our thoughts. And we can confess to ourselves, and we can confess to somebody else too if we want to, but we can confess to ourselves, I really have been kind of indulging in this a bit lately. So these are the ways in which we can make practice our whole life. Having faith in ourselves, that's really central. We have to have faith in ourselves, in this body, in this world that we're in this place, in this country, in this century, in this decade, in this year. Having faith that in ourselves, in this life that we have, in our circumstances. Having faith in the teachings and having faith in our Sangha, that our relationships with each other are really valuable. Turning up for each other is really a wonderful thing to do. So I'm going to make it so I can see our online Sangha. There we go. So would anyone like to comment or ask a question? Yes, Russ.
Thank you very much for that beautiful talk, Neti, about a subject very dear to my heart. It's dear to my heart for a number of reasons. One, Norman Fisher is my teacher, my ordination teacher. The name he gave me at my ordination, the first part, is Great Perseverance. By that, I think he meant no talent whatsoever, but she just keeps showing up. And so I really appreciate it when someone uplifts that deep intention, no matter how bleak or completely pointless it looks. I'm just going to keep doing it as best as I can. And eventually something positive actually comes of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. And Yevgeny, you look like you're somewhere very cold. Where are you? I didn't see Yevgeny somewhere.
No, I'm actually at the beach.
Oh!
I just a little bit in the shade. It's a little bit cool here, so
Oh.
and it's protecting myself from the sun.
I see.
So yeah, doing very lazy today. Yeah, and yeah, thanks very much for yes, it's a really good reminder. And I think we might feel this way a little bit when we get older. I'm actually joined this movement late in my life, so it's a bit of pressure, like a healthy pressure, I guess, to not to divert too much from the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Having death on the horizon is very motivating.
Concentrates the mind beautifully.
Where would we be without knowing that we're going to die? It would be terrible.
That's true.
Sarah?
Thank you. So I was wondering, in part of the talk you were talking, it's something about how we're serious, dignified practitioners. Sometimes I feel like maybe we should take ourselves less seriously. And I mean, what is there to be so serious about, really? I mean, we're doing our best to do the practice and to follow the forms and the ceremonies because that's our vow. But at the same time, I feel like when you're approaching everything so like taking it so seriously, you sort of lose the point, anyway. I was wondering how you think about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because at the same time, we just don't want to take ourselves seriously at the same time, because taking ourselves seriously can be a little bit too much like reifying ourselves into something that we have to take seriously. But this is just the way of language. In one way, we want to take ourselves seriously from the perspective that people are often just kind of moving through their life, one event after the other, and are a little bit sort of rudderless. The rudder isn't clear. The direction that they've got not a really strong sense. They're just being moved about. Like if you think of a boat without a rudder, it just sort of moves about in the water. And in one way, that's like perfect. Let's just float about on the water. But in another way, you could say it's good to have some like intention with our life. And the vow that we take is to be of benefit in this world. But to be of benefit in this world, we actually, we can be of much greater benefit if we don't have confused and deluded ideas about ourselves and the world. And to shed ourselves of those delusions takes practice and takes effort. So we kind of this combination of taking ourselves seriously and our one precious life seriously, and another way, like, just relax, it's a beautiful day. You don't have to be serious about anything. This is our Zen practice, is always like this. It's always like this. We say one thing and then we just say the opposite thing. It's just how Zen practice is. It's what's so beautiful about it. It's very hard to get too dogmatic. As soon as you start to get dogmatic, someone like Sarah says, yes, but what about not being serious? Like, that's right, let's not be serious. Yes, Francis.
It seems there must be like, it's good to be serious, but we should also be joyful and take it lightly as well, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah. The thing is, when you give a talk, or when you're saying words, you can only say one set of words at a time. So you say, let's be serious. And then you can say, don't be serious. But you can't say, let's be serious and not be serious. And there's not a word that, we have words like effortless effort. We have that effortless effort. So I guess we could say light-hearted seriousness or something like that. Yeah. All right. Let's. Oh, you want to say something, Sarah? Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about lighthearted seriousness. And the reason that seriousness is sort of like a trigger, like you were saying, it can lead you to sort of reify. And it's like Zen is sort of, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. But then when you start taking your Zen practice very seriously, then you're obviously creating, you don't experience that emptiness. It's like yeah, it's hard to explain, but you know what I mean. It can become sort of like a trap even instead of a freedom. And so anyway, the thing though that I was contemplating today is how human beings are so like prone to just harming, like driving around in cars that are harmful, killing animals, the plastic consumption and how it's polluting all the oceans. And just look around. It's just so obvious the harm that is done because of this egocentric view of like we're the most important species on the planet or something. I don't really know, but I do feel like it's serious to think about that, to think about not harming, and to think about like what are the things that we do and that cause harm. And anyway, so I think that that's important to think about and to take seriously.
Yeah. And like you say, anything can become a trap. So if we get too caught in that, then we won't be able to just enjoy the sound of the birds. Instead, we'd look at the birds and say, well, they're all going to be extinct soon. Can't enjoy them. Like if you go too far in any one direction, it becomes a weight, it becomes a burden. So we just have to keep this balance all the time between taking it seriously, climate change, for example, we need to take it seriously. And we also need to be able to just forget about it in the moment and see the sky and just to appreciate the moment that we're in. We have to do both at the same time.
Neti, tell them about the stink of Zen.
Okay.
Just quickly before we end, because it fits right in here.
Okay. Well, it's kind of when you take Zen too seriously. Yeah, it's called the stink of Zen when you take it too seriously. Yeah. All right, thank you, everyone. Let's do our chanting together and then some bowing. You can actually do a little clunk across there. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.